Life has a way of handing us a deck of cards that feels impossible to play. For me, it was a childhood shadowed by the unpredictable moods of a narcissistic mother and the resounding silence of an absent father. Add to that the complexities of navigating young adulthood as a divorced parent of two, struggling with a marijuana addiction that felt like both a crutch and a chain, and it might seem like the dream of earning passive income was as far-fetched as the moon. Yet I wasn't alone in this. The dream of passive income lures many, promising freedom from the relentless 9-to-5 grind, more time with loved ones, and the ability to create a life on your terms. For me, it was more than that. It was survival. My kids needed stability, and I needed hope. But the most challenging part wasn't understanding passive income, overcoming the deep-seated fear that I wasn't enough to achieve it. From dealing with the cyclical patterns of addiction to finding the strength to unlearn the toxic lessons of my upbringing, this journey was anything but smooth. It meant facing my demons head-on, embracing vulnerability, and finding clarity in chaos. It meant failing repeatedly and still daring to try again. Along the way, I discovered that passive income isn't a quick fix or an easy out. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. This book isn't just about strategies for earning money while you sleep. It's a deeply personal story about perseverance, self-discovery, and reclaiming agency over my life. It's about the sacrifices we make, the lessons we learn, and the strength we find when we dare to believe in something greater than our circumstances. I hope my story can be a light in the darkness for anyone who has ever felt trapped by their past or paralyzed by self-doubt. Passive income isn't just about financial freedom. It's about the freedom to dream, heal, and create a life worth living.
Chapter 1: The Weight of the Past.
My earliest memories are a kaleidoscope of contradictions. My mother, with her vibrant personality and captivating smile, could command the attention of any room. But behind closed doors, her temper was a storm. Any real or imagined mistake became an opportunity for her to remind me of my shortcomings. "You'll never amount to anything," she'd say, her words slicing through my confidence like a knife. My father's absence was an even louder declaration. His silence spoke volumes, leaving a void I tried to fill with dreams of his eventual return. When he didn't, I learned to stop expecting. That's when resentment settled in, wrapping itself around my heart like ivy. As a child, I didn't have the vocabulary to understand the emotional manipulation at play. I only knew that I was constantly tiptoeing, desperate to avoid my mother's wrath and yearning for a father who never came home. It was a tightrope walk, and falling meant drowning in criticism or neglect. Years later, as a young adult, I carried the weight of these experiences into my relationships. When I married at 20, I thought I had found someone to love me unconditionally, but the echoes of my past crept into my marriage, shaping my actions and reactions. My partner couldn't fill the void left by my parents, and I couldn't break free from the patterns I had learned as a child. After the divorce, I found myself at my lowest point. 2 children looked up to me, but I felt like a failure. My tree addiction became my escape, a way to numb the pain and silence the inner critic that sounded suspiciously like my mother. During one of these hazy nights, the idea of passive income first crossed my mind. I didn't know where to start. All I knew was that I wanted more for my children and myself. But before I could build anything, I had to confront the foundation upon which my life had been built. It wasn't stable, it wasn't healthy, and it wasn't serving me anymore. As I write this, I hope you'll see that the weight of the past doesn't have to define your future. It's a part of your story, yes, but it's not the whole story. With time, reflection, and the right tools, you can find a way to carry it without letting it crush you. In the following chapters, I'll take you through my journey, step by step, mistake by mistake, lesson by lesson. Together, we'll explore what it means to rise above, to fight for something better, and to create a life that no longer feels dictated by the pain of yesterday.
Chapter 2, Starting from Scratch.
The day after the divorce papers were finalized, I woke up with a strange mix of emptiness and possibility. My world was quieter, lonelier, but there was also a clarity that had been missing for years. For the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of my choices and the freedom to make new ones. The challenge was figuring out where to begin. Starting over is never easy, especially when you're carrying the baggage of your past. I had no savings, no plan, and no roadmap. My 2 children, who were still young and full of questions, became my compass. Their laughter and innocence were a reminder that despite the chaos of my life, I had something worth fighting for.
Facing the unknown.
Starting from scratch felt like staring at a blank page with a broken pencil. The first thing I realized was that I couldn't do this alone. I needed support, not just financially, but emotionally. My first step was reaching out to a local single-parent support group. Walking into that meeting felt like exposing my most vulnerable self to a room full of strangers. But it also became a turning point. Hearing other people's stories made me realize I wasn't alone. There were parents who had lost everything and were still standing. There were parents who had rebuilt their lives from even less than I had. Slowly, I began to believe that I could do it too.
The financial wake-up call.
Before I could dream of earning passive income, I had to face the harsh reality of my finances. My credit cards were maxed out, my rent was overdue, and my grocery budget was stretched to its limit. The idea of starting a business or investing seemed absurd when I was scraping by just to keep the lights on. I started by creating a budget. It wasn't perfect, and sticking to it felt impossible some weeks, but it was a small step in the right direction. I cut out unnecessary expenses, goodbye to takeout and streaming services, and began searching for ways to bring in extra cash. Babysitting, selling old clothes online, and even freelance writing gigs became my side hustles. They weren't glamorous, but they kept us afloat.
The emotional weight of starting over.
Starting over isn't just about rebuilding your bank account. It's about rebuilding your sense of self. For years, I had defined myself by my failures, my failed marriage, my addiction, my toxic relationships. Letting go of that narrative was harder than I expected. Every time I made a mistake, I heard my mother's voice in my head. "You'll never amount to anything." Her words haunted me, but I was determined to prove her wrong, not for her, but for myself. Therapy became a lifeline. I found a counselor who helped me unpack the emotional baggage I'd been carrying and taught me how to challenge the negative beliefs that had taken root in my mind.
Planting seeds for the future.
Once my basic needs were met, I started thinking about the future. That's when I stumbled upon the concept of passive income. At first, it sounded too good to be true. Make money while you sleep, the blogs and YouTube videos promised. But as I dug deeper, I realized it wasn't about quick fixes or overnight success. Passive income required work, planning, and patience, qualities I was still learning to develop. I started small. I read books about personal finance and watched free webinars about investing. I discovered the world of low-cost index funds and began setting aside $10 a week to invest. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Every dollar I saved felt like a brick in the foundation of the life I was trying to build.
The hardest part.
The hardest part of starting from scratch wasn't the financial struggle or the late nights spent working side gigs. It was the voice in my head that constantly asked, "What if you fail again?" That fear was paralyzing, But I had to remind myself that failure wasn't the end. It was part of the process. I began to see each small step as a victory. Paying off a credit card, opening a savings account, and learning how to cook healthy meals on a tight budget were all milestones. They weren't flashy or Instagram-worthy, but they were proof that I was moving forward.
A new perspective.
Starting from scratch taught me that progress isn't linear. Some days I felt like I was taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But each setback taught me something valuable. I learned to be resourceful, to ask for help, and to celebrate the small wins. By the end of that first year, I had paid off a significant portion of my debt, started a small emergency fund, and even invested in my first index fund. More importantly, I had begun to believe in myself again. I wasn't just surviving, I was starting to thrive. This chapter of my life was far from glamorous, but it laid the groundwork for everything that came next. Starting from scratch wasn't just about rebuilding my finances, it was about rediscovering my strength, my resilience, and my ability to create a better future for my family.
Chapter 3, Dreams versus Reality.
The allure of passive income is powerful. Who wouldn't want to make money while lying on a beach or spending time with their kids? For someone like me, the idea felt like salvation. It represented stability, freedom, and the chance to escape the paycheck-to-paycheck grind. But as I dived deeper into the world of passive income, I quickly learned that dreams often collide with reality.
The fantasy of passive income.
When I first Googled how to earn passive income, I was bombarded with ads promising easy solutions. Buy this course, flip houses, or start a dropshipping business. The success stories were captivating. People earning 6 figures from ebooks, rental properties, or YouTube channels. It all sounded too good to be true, and in many cases, it was. These success stories didn't emphasize the effort and time required up front. They glossed over the sleepless nights, the trial and error learning curve, and the setbacks that almost every entrepreneur faces. I began to realize that passive income wasn't passive at all. It required just as much, if not more, hustle than a traditional job.
The wake-up call.
The first time I tried to enter the world of passive income, I failed miserably. After a few posts, a blog I had started sat untouched because I didn't have the energy or consistency to maintain it. I then spent $50 on an affiliate marketing course that promised results but left me more confused than before. It was a harsh wake-up call. I realized I was chasing the fantasy of passive income without understanding the required work. I felt defeated, but I also knew I couldn't give up. I needed to shift from looking for shortcuts to embracing the grind.
The importance of research.
After my initial failures, I decided to slow down and educate myself. I read books, listened to podcasts, and joined online communities dedicated to passive income. Through this process, I learned an important lesson. Not all passive income streams are created equal. Some methods, like real estate or dividend investing, required significant upfront capital that I simply didn't have. Others, like blogging or selling digital products, were more accessible but required a steep learning curve and consistent effort before they could become profitable. Understanding these nuances helped me narrow my focus and set realistic goals.
Finding my niche.
One of the hardest parts of pursuing passive income was figuring out where I fit in. The internet is full of opportunities, but not every opportunity aligns with my skills or circumstances. I tried to reflect on my strengths and passions. What could I bring to the unique table? How could I create value for others? Eventually, I decided to revisit the idea of blogging, but this time with a clearer vision. Writing had always been an outlet for me, a way to process my thoughts and connect with others. I chose a niche that resonated with my experiences: personal finance for single parents. I understood this topic deeply, and I knew countless others could benefit from my journey.
Balancing dreams with reality.
Starting my blog was exciting but overwhelming. I had to learn everything from scratch: building a website, writing SEO-friendly content, and promoting my posts on social media. Progress was slow, and there were moments when I questioned whether it was worth the effort. But I reminded myself that success wouldn't come overnight. Balancing my dreams of financial freedom with the reality of my current circumstances was a constant challenge. I still had bills to pay, kids to care for, and an addiction to overcome. There were nights when I stayed up late writing blog posts after putting my kids to bed, only to wake up exhausted from my day job.
The value of patience.
One of the most valuable lessons I learned during this phase was patience. Passive income isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It requires consistent effort, even when the results aren't immediately visible. Every blog post I wrote and every hour I spent learning about monetization strategies was an investment in my future. I also learned to celebrate small wins. The first time I earned $5 from an affiliate link, I felt like I had won the lottery. Although that $5 wasn't enough to change my life, it proved my efforts were paying off, motivating me to keep going.
The bigger picture.
As I continued to build my blog, I started to see passive income in a new light. It wasn't just about making money, but about creating something meaningful. My blog wasn't just a source of income. It was a platform to share my story, connect with others, and empower single parents like me. Dreams versus reality is a balancing act, but the two don't have to be at odds. By grounding my aspirations in hard work and realistic expectations, I was able to turn my dream of passive income into something tangible. It wasn't easy or quick, but it was worth every step of the journey. This chapter of my life taught me that the road to passive income isn't paved with shortcuts. It's a path of persistence, learning, and growth. While the dream may look different from reality, the reward of creating something from nothing is priceless.
Chapter 4, Facing My Demons.
The pursuit of passive income is often painted as a straightforward journey. Learn a skill, apply it, and earn money while you sleep. But for me, it was far from simple. Before I could fully commit to building a future, I had to confront the demons of my past and present. My struggles with addiction, self-doubt, and deeply ingrained fears threatened to derail my progress at every step.
The shadow of addiction.
Weed had been my escape for years. It dulled the pain of my childhood and quieted the inner voice that constantly told me I wasn't good enough. After my divorce, it became my crutch, a way to cope with the overwhelming pressure of raising 2 children on my own while trying to find a path forward. But as I began to pursue passive income, I realized that my reliance on pot was holding me back. It drained my energy, clouded my focus, and robbed me of the clarity I needed to make decisions. More importantly, it set a dangerous example for my kids. I didn't want them to grow up thinking that running from their problems was the only way to deal with them. Quitting wasn't easy. The first few weeks were hell. I felt irritable, anxious, and restless. I missed the escape it provided, but I knew I couldn't afford to give in. My kids deserved a present-focused parent, and I deserved to give myself a real chance at building the life I dreamed of.
Confronting self-doubt.
Even as I started making progress, self-doubt was a constant companion. Every time I hit a roadblock or made a mistake, the voice in my head would whisper, "Who are you kidding? You're not cut out for this." It was my mother's voice, a haunting echo of the criticism I had endured throughout my childhood. Therapy became an essential part of my journey. My therapist helped me identify the roots of my self-doubt and taught me techniques to challenge those negative thoughts. Journaling also became a powerful tool. Writing down my fears and insecurities allowed me to examine them more objectively and replace them with affirmations of my worth and capability. I also began to surround myself with people who believed in me. My support group, friends, and even online communities became a source of encouragement. Their stories of resilience and perseverance reminded me that I wasn't alone and that setbacks were a normal part of the journey.
Unlearning toxic patterns.
Growing up with a narcissistic mother left me with a distorted view of relationships and self-worth. I had learned to prioritize others' approval over my needs and equate mistakes with failure. These patterns had seeped into every aspect of my life, from parenting to work. Unlearning these toxic patterns requires conscious effort. I started setting boundaries with people who drained my energy, including family members. I learned to say no without guilt and to recognize that my worth wasn't tied to my ability to please others. Most importantly, I began to forgive myself for my mistakes. Every failure became an opportunity to learn and grow rather than a reason to quit. This shift in mindset was liberating, allowing me to approach my goals more confidently and resiliently.
The battle with fear.
Fear was perhaps my greatest demon. It whispered whenever I considered taking a risk or stepping out of my comfort zone. What if I failed? What if I let my kids down? What if I wasn't enough? I realized that facing fear head-on was the only way to overcome it. So I started taking small, calculated risks, launching my blog, investing my first $50, and reaching out to potential collaborators. Each step, no matter how small, built my confidence and proved that fear didn't have to control me. I also found strength in vulnerability. Sharing my story on my blog and with people in my life was terrifying at first, but the support and connection it brought me were invaluable. It reminded me that vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It was a bridge to deeper understanding and growth.
A turning point.
One of the most significant moments in this chapter of my life came during a particularly difficult week. I had just faced a major setback with my blog, a technical glitch that erased hours of work, and I was tempted to give up. That night, as I sat in my living room, feeling defeated, my oldest child came up and said, "Mom, you're working so hard. I'm proud of you." Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. At that moment, I realized that my kids didn't need me to be perfect. They required me to keep trying. They needed to see that failure wasn't the end, but a stepping stone to success.
Lessons learned.
Facing my demons was the most challenging part of my journey, but it was also the most transformative. It taught me that growth isn't about avoiding challenges, but embracing them. Whenever I confronted my fears, doubts, and unhealthy habits, I became stronger and more resilient. This chapter of my life wasn't just about building passive income. It was about building myself. It was about breaking free from the chains of my past and stepping into a future where I could be the person I wanted to be, not just for my kids, but for myself. In the end, facing my demons wasn't just a step in the journey. It was the foundation upon which everything else was built. Without that inner work, no amount of money or success would have brought me the peace and fulfillment I was searching for.
Chapter 5. The first step forward.
Taking the first real step toward earning passive income felt like standing at the base of a mountain, unsure where to place my foot. I had spent months learning, researching, and preparing, but starting was still the hardest part. Doubt loomed large, but I knew I couldn't let it paralyze me. My children were depending on me to build something better for all of us, and it was time to move forward.
Starting small.
My first venture into passive income was intentionally modest. Instead of diving into something overwhelming, I decided to build on what I already had, my voice and my story. I knew I wasn't an expert in everything, but I was an expert in surviving hardship, navigating single parenthood, and juggling financial struggles. That's how my personal finance blog for single parents was born. Starting small allowed me to manage my expectations. I didn't expect to make thousands of dollars right away. Instead, I set achievable goals, write 2 blog posts a week, learn basic SEO, and share my work with relevant online communities. Each task felt like a win, even when the results were slow to come.
Building a routine.
Consistency quickly became my best ally. Between parenting, working, and maintaining my recovery, finding time to write and build my blog wasn't easy. I carved out small windows of time during my kids' naps, after bedtime, and on weekends. At first, it felt like an impossible juggling act, but the structure it brought to my days was invaluable. I also prioritized learning something new each week, whether I was improving my writing, understanding website analytics, or exploring monetization strategies. Every bit of knowledge felt like progress. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was necessary.
Overcoming early challenges.
The first few months of blogging were riddled with challenges. I struggled with technical issues, like setting up my website and making it visually appealing on a shoestring budget. I wrestled with imposter syndrome, wondering if anyone would care about what I had to say. I faced rejection. Emails to potential collaborators went unanswered, and my early blog traffic was dishearteningly low. What kept me going was the belief that every expert once started as a beginner. I reminded myself that even the most successful bloggers had faced these same struggles. With each obstacle, I found ways to adapt. I watched free tutorials, sought advice from online forums, and celebrated small victories, like my first blog comment or a small spike in traffic.
Monetizing the dream.
After 3 months of consistent effort, I began exploring ways to monetize my blog. I applied for affiliate marketing programs, which allowed me to earn a commission by promoting products and services that aligned with my content. I also signed up for ad networks, knowing that even a few cents per page view would be a step in the right direction. At first, the earnings were almost laughable. A $2 affiliate commission here, a $5 ad revenue payout there. But those small amounts felt monumental. They weren't just money. They were proof that my hard work was starting to pay off. They were fuel to keep pushing forward.
Building connections.
One of the most surprising rewards of this journey was the connections I made along the way. As I shared my story and my struggles, I began to attract an audience of like-minded individuals, single parents, aspiring entrepreneurs, and others seeking financial independence reached out to share their experiences and support my work. These connections reminded me that I wasn't alone. They also opened doors to new opportunities, like guest blogging on larger platforms and collaborating with brands that aligned with my mission. Slowly but surely, my blog became more than a personal project. It became a community.
Lessons from the first step.
Looking back, the first step forward wasn't just about starting a blog or making a few dollars. It was about proving to myself that I could take control of my life. It was about moving from a mindset of survival to one of growth and possibility. And it was about showing my kids that their mother wasn't afraid to try, fail, and try again. Some of the most important lessons I learned during this time were: start before you're ready. Perfection isn't a prerequisite for progress. If I had waited for the perfect moment to start, I'd still be waiting. Celebrate small wins. Every milestone, no matter how minor, is worth acknowledging. It keeps you motivated and focused on the bigger picture. Focus on what you can control. While factors outside your control will always exist, your effort and attitude are always within your grasp. Learn as you go. You don't have to have all the answers on day one. Growth happens through action and adaptation.
The power of momentum.
The first step forward was just that, a step. It wasn't a leap or a sprint, but it was enough to create momentum. Every post I published, every dollar I earned, and every connection I made built upon the last. It wasn't about instant success. It was about building a foundation for the future. By the end of this chapter in my journey, I felt a sense of pride and possibility that I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I wasn't just dreaming about a better life. I was actively creating it. And that realization was more valuable than any paycheck. This step forward was the beginning of something bigger, and I was ready to see where it would lead.
Chapter 6, Building the Framework.
After taking the first step, I realized that earning passive income was not just about small victories. It was about creating a sustainable system. I needed a solid framework to build upon, one that could grow with me and adapt to the challenges I would inevitably face. This chapter was all about structure, strategy, and resilience.
The importance of a clear vision.
At this stage, I knew I needed to clarify my goals. Passive income wasn't just about money, it was about freedom. Freedom to spend more time with my kids, to escape the financial instability that had haunted me for years, and to pursue my passions without constant worry. I started by writing down my vision. What did I want my life to look like in 5 years? What role would passive income play in that vision? These questions helped me identify specific, measurable goals. For example, I aimed to replace a portion of my monthly income with passive earnings within a year. Having a clear target gave me direction and motivation.
Diversifying my approach.
One of the lessons I learned from my research was the importance of diversification. Relying on a single source of income, whether active or passive, is risky. To build a robust framework, I needed multiple income streams that could support each other. I expanded my efforts beyond blogging affiliate marketing. I began focusing on high-conversion products and services that aligned closely with my niche. By creating in-depth reviews and tutorials, I provided value to my audience while increasing my earning potential. Digital products. I created a downloadable budget planner specifically designed for single parents. It was simple but practical, and I priced it affordably to make it accessible. Freelance writing. While not passive, freelance writing became a way to fund my other projects. I pitched articles to parenting and finance blogs, building my credibility and earning extra income. Each venture required effort, but they also had the potential to become more passive sources of income over time.
Establishing systems.
I needed systems to manage multiple projects without losing my mind. To this end, I invested in tools like content planners, email automation, and analytics platforms. These tools helped me streamline my work, track my progress, and stay organized. Automation was a game changer. By setting up automated email sequences and social media scheduling, I freed up time to focus on creating content and developing new ideas. These systems weren't perfect, but they allowed me to work smarter, not harder.
Learning to delegate.
As my blog and other ventures grew, so did the workload. I realized I couldn't do everything alone. Initially, I hesitated to delegate. I was worried about the cost and whether anyone could do the work as well as I could. But I soon learned that delegating wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. I hired a virtual assistant to help with administrative tasks, like responding to emails and scheduling posts. This small investment paid off by giving me more time to focus on strategic growth. It also taught me the value of trusting others and building a team.
Overcoming setbacks.
Building the framework for passive income was not without setbacks. One of my digital products flopped because I didn't fully understand my audience's needs. A partnership with another blogger fell apart due to miscommunication, and there were weeks when my motivation waned and I struggled to stay on track. Each setback felt like a step backward, but it also taught me valuable lessons. I learned to embrace feedback. When a product or post didn't perform well, I asked for feedback and used it to improve. Adapt quickly. When something didn't work, I pivoted instead of dwelling on the failure. Focus on the long term. I reminded myself that every entrepreneur faces setbacks, and success comes from persistence.
Celebrating progress.
Amidst the challenges, there were moments of triumph. My first digital product sale, my first freelance writing pitch accepted, and my first $100 month from affiliate marketing all felt like significant milestones. These moments reminded me why I had started this journey and gave me the confidence to keep going. I also began to see the impact of my work beyond financial gains. Readers emailed me to say that my blog posts had helped them budget better or find hope in their own struggles. Knowing that I was making a difference fueled my drive to continue building.
Staying grounded.
One of the biggest challenges during this phase was staying grounded. It was easy to get caught up in the numbers, traffic, earnings, followers, but I reminded myself that these metrics were only part of the story. The real measure of success was the life I was creating for my kids and myself. I made time for self-care, whether it was taking a walk, journaling, or simply spending an afternoon playing with my children. These moments of connection kept me grounded and reminded me of the bigger picture.
The foundation for growth.
By the end of this chapter, I had built a framework that felt stable and sustainable. My blog was growing steadily, my digital products were gaining traction, and I was beginning to see the potential of passive income as more than just a dream. It was becoming a reality, one step at a time. The foundation I had laid wasn't perfect, but it was strong enough to support the next phase of my journey. With systems in place, diversified income streams, and a clear vision, I was ready to scale and explore new opportunities. This chapter taught me that building the framework isn't just about what you create, it's about who you become in the process. It's about resilience, adaptability, and the willingness to learn. And most importantly, it's about believing that even the smallest steps can lead to something extraordinary.
Chapter 7, Hustling Through the Struggle.
No journey to success is without its challenges, and mine was no exception. Building passive income while juggling parenthood, recovering from addiction, and battling self-doubt was a monumental task. Yet these struggles proved my determination. This chapter was all about hustle, pushing through adversity, embracing the grind, and finding ways to persevere when the odds felt stacked against me.
Juggling multiple roles.
Being a single parent meant my time was stretched thin. My days were filled with preparing meals, helping with homework, and making countless trips to and from school and activities. My nights were reserved for writing blog posts, tweaking my digital products, and responding to emails. Sleep became a luxury, and burnout was a constant threat. I had to become a master of time management. I used every spare moment efficiently, breaking my tasks into manageable chunks. I created a schedule that aligned with my kids' routines, carving out dedicated blocks of time for my work. It wasn't perfect. There were days when chaos reigned, but it kept me moving forward.
Embracing the grind.
Hustle wasn't just a buzzword for me, it was a necessity. There were no shortcuts, no easy wins. Every dollar I earned came from hours of effort, writing, learning, networking, and improving. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and I took pride in every small achievement. I reminded myself that the grind was temporary. The sleepless nights, the sacrifices, and the constant push were all part of building something that could eventually give me the freedom I craved. That vision kept me going, even when exhaustion threatened to take over.
Financial struggles.
Money was a constant worry. Every penny I earned went toward necessities: rent, groceries, and school supplies for my kids. Investing in my blog and other ventures felt like a risk I couldn't afford to take. Yet I knew that without investment, my dreams would stall. I found creative ways to stretch my resources. I traded services with other freelancers, offering my writing skills in exchange for help with web design or marketing. I used free or low-cost tools for everything from website hosting to graphic design. These small compromises allowed me to keep growing without derailing my budget.
Staying motivated amid setbacks.
Setbacks were inevitable, and they tested my resolve daily. A blog post I had poured my heart into might get little traffic, or a digital product might fail to sell. Some days, it felt like the universe was conspiring against me. The temptation to quit was always there, whispering in my ear. What kept me going was my why. My kids were my anchor, my constant reminder that this journey wasn't just about me. I wanted to give them a life that wasn't defined by struggle. I wanted them to see that hard work and resilience could overcome even the toughest obstacles. I also leaned heavily on my support network. Friends, my therapist, and online communities became my sounding boards. They celebrated my wins, no matter how small, and reminded me of the progress I had made. Their encouragement helped me see setbacks as temporary rather than permanent.
Learning through failure.
Failure became one of my greatest teachers. Each misstep revealed a lesson: what didn't work, what I needed to improve, and how I could adapt. I learned to embrace failure as part of the process rather than a reflection of my worth. When my first attempt at selling an online course flopped, I realized I hadn't done enough market research. Instead of giving up, I reached out to my audience, asking what they needed and wanted. Their feedback helped me create a new product that resonated, and the sales began to trickle in.
Celebrating small wins.
In the midst of the hustle, it was easy to lose sight of my progress. To combat this, I made a habit of celebrating small wins. Whether it was earning my first $100 from affiliate marketing or receiving an email from a reader who found my content helpful, I allowed myself to feel proud of these moments. Celebrating didn't mean extravagant rewards. Sometimes it was as simple as taking a break to enjoy a cup of tea or spending a Saturday afternoon at the park with my kids. These small acts of recognition kept my spirits high and reminded me that progress, no matter how slow, was still progress.
The growth mindset.
Perhaps the most significant shift during this phase was adopting a growth mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as insurmountable obstacles, I began to view them as opportunities for learning and growth. I stopped comparing myself to others and focused on my own journey. I also practiced gratitude. Despite the struggles, I had much to be thankful for: my kids, my health, the chance to pursue a dream. Gratitude became my anchor, grounding me during moments of doubt and helping me find joy in the process.
The results of hustle.
By the end of this phase, the fruits of my hustle began to show. My blog traffic was growing steadily, my digital products were gaining traction, and my affiliate income was slowly increasing. It wasn't enough to quit my day job yet, but it was a step closer to the freedom I envisioned. More importantly, I felt a sense of accomplishment that money couldn't buy. I had proven to myself that I could persevere through struggle and turn my dreams into reality one step at a time. While the journey was far from over, I knew I had built a foundation strong enough to carry me forward. This chapter of my life taught me that hustle isn't just about working hard. It's about working with purpose. It's about finding the strength to push through adversity, the wisdom to learn from setbacks, and the courage to keep going when the path gets tough. In the end, it's about realizing that the struggle is what makes success truly meaningful.
Chapter 8, Turbulence of Addiction.
As the momentum in my passive income journey began to build, so did the turbulence in my personal life. Addiction had always been a shadow over my shoulder, and despite my progress, its grip still threatened to pull me backward. This chapter wasn't just about building financial stability, it was about fighting for the emotional and mental freedom I needed to sustain it.
The quiet pull of old habits.
Addiction has a way of whispering lies into your ear. It tells you that you're too stressed, too tired, or too overwhelmed to carry on without its familiar comfort. For me, marijuana was a crutch I'd leaned on for years, numbing the pain of my childhood and the challenges of adulthood. Even as I worked tirelessly to create a better life, the pull of old habits was always there. At first, I rationalized my use. It's just to relax, I'd tell myself after a long day of juggling work, kids, and blogging. But deep down, I knew the truth. Every time I turned to it, I was avoiding the emotions I didn't want to face. I was sacrificing clarity and focus for temporary relief, and it was slowing me down.
The breaking point.
The breaking point came one night when I missed a deadline for a freelance writing project because I was too foggy-headed to focus. That missed opportunity cost me money I couldn't afford to lose, but more than that, it cost me my confidence. I felt like I was failing, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a parent and a person. That night, I looked at my kids sleeping peacefully in their beds and realized I couldn't keep letting addiction control my life. They deserved a mother who was present, focused, and determined to give them the future they deserved. And I deserved to be free from the chains I had carried for so long.
The battle to break free.
Quitting wasn't easy. Addiction is as much a mental battle as it is a physical one, and every day felt like a fight against myself. The withdrawal symptoms, irritability, insomnia, and anxiety were a constant reminder of how deeply ingrained the habit had become. I leaned heavily on my support network. My therapist helped me develop coping strategies like mindfulness exercises and journaling to manage my cravings and emotions. Friends from my single-parent support group became my cheerleaders, reminding me that progress wasn't linear and that setbacks didn't define me. I also found strength in my children. Every time I wanted to give in, I reminded myself why I was fighting. I didn't want my kids to grow up seeing their mother rely on substances to cope. I wanted them to see that it was possible to face life's challenges head-on and come out stronger.
Replacing addiction with purpose.
One of the most effective ways I found to combat addiction was to fill the void it left with purpose. My blog and passive income projects became my anchor. Every time I felt the urge to escape, I channeled that energy into writing, creating, and learning. These activities gave me a sense of accomplishment and control that addiction never could. I also began to focus on self-care. Exercise, healthy eating, and meditation became daily habits that helped me rebuild my physical and mental health. These small acts of care reminded me that I was worth the effort, even on the days when I didn't feel like it.
The role of forgiveness.
Perhaps the hardest part of overcoming addiction was learning to forgive myself. I had spent years blaming myself for my struggles, feeling ashamed of my choices, and doubting my ability to change. But carrying that guilt only made the journey harder. Through therapy and reflection, I began to see addiction not as a moral failing, but as a symptom of deeper pain. I started to show myself the compassion I had so freely given to others. I forgave myself for the mistakes I had made and focused on the progress I was making.
The ripple effect.
As I gained control over my addiction, I began to see its ripple effects on other areas of my life. My mind felt clearer, my productivity improved, and my interactions with my children became more meaningful. I was more patient, more present, and more engaged in their lives. Financially, the impact was also significant. The money I had once spent on marijuana was now being funneled into my blog, investments, and savings for my kids' future. Every dollar felt like a step closer to the life I envisioned for us.
A continuous journey.
Overcoming addiction wasn't a one-time event. It was an ongoing journey. There were days when I stumbled, moments when the cravings felt overwhelming, and nights when the stress of life made me want to give up. But each time, I reminded myself of how far I had come and how much more I had to gain. This chapter of my life taught me that breaking free from addiction is about more than willpower. It's about building a life worth staying present for. It's about finding purpose, seeking support, and showing yourself the kindness you deserve. And most of all, it's about believing that change is possible, no matter how many times you've fallen. By the end of this phase, I wasn't just earning passive income, I was reclaiming my life. The turbulence of addiction had threatened to derail me, but it had also forced me to grow in ways I never thought possible. And for that, I was deeply grateful.
Chapter 9, Breaking the Cycle.
Breaking free from addiction was only one part of the larger challenge I faced, dismantling the toxic cycles that had shaped my life. Growing up in a dysfunctional household, navigating my early adulthood through the lens of survival, and wrestling with my self-worth had all created patterns that needed to be confronted and broken. If I wanted to create a stable, fulfilling life, not just for me, but for my children, I had to change more than my habits. I had to change my mindset, behaviors, and beliefs.
Recognizing the patterns.
The first step to breaking the cycle was identifying the patterns I had unconsciously repeated. My mother's narcissistic tendencies had taught me to equate love with control and approval. My father's absence had left me yearning for validation from others, often at the expense of my own needs. These lessons had seeped into every aspect of my life. I saw it in the toxic relationships I had clung to, the self-sabotaging behaviors I had indulged in, and the fear of failure that had kept me from taking risks. Recognizing these patterns was painful, but it was also liberating. It gave me the power to decide what I wanted to carry forward and what I wanted to leave behind.
Rewriting the script.
Once I understood the cycles I was stuck in, I began rewriting my script. This wasn't about pretending the past didn't exist. It was about reframing it in a way that empowered me. My mother's criticisms no longer defined my worth. Instead, they became a reminder of the kind of parent I didn't want to be. My father's absence no longer left a void. It taught me the importance of being present for my children. I also began to challenge the negative beliefs that had held me back. Instead of telling myself, "You're not good enough," I reminded myself of how far I had come. Instead of fearing failure, I embraced it as a stepping stone to success. These shifts didn't happen overnight, but with practice, they became my new default.
Setting boundaries.
Breaking the cycle also meant setting boundaries with people who perpetuated the toxicity I was trying to escape. This was one of the hardest but most necessary steps. I had to distance myself from relationships that drained me, including family members who refused to respect my growth. Setting boundaries wasn't about shutting people out. It was about protecting my energy and prioritizing my well-being. It was about teaching my children that it's okay to say no and that their worth isn't tied to how much they can give to others. Over time, these boundaries became a source of strength, allowing me to focus on what truly mattered.
Building a new legacy.
For my children, breaking the cycle was about more than just financial stability. It was about creating a new legacy. I wanted them to grow up in a home filled with love, respect, and opportunity. I wanted them to see that success wasn't just about money. It was about living a life aligned with your values. To achieve this, I made intentional choices about how I parented. I prioritized open communication, encouraging my kids to share their thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment. I modeled resilience, showing them that it's okay to struggle as long as you keep trying. And I celebrated their individuality, reminding them that their worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval.
Replacing generational patterns.
Breaking the cycle also meant replacing unhealthy generational patterns with healthier ones. I began teaching my kids lessons I had never learned growing up: how to manage money, set boundaries, and practice self-care. These lessons weren't just for them, they were for me too. Every time I taught my children something new, I reinforced it in my own life. For example, I created a family budget and involved my kids in the process. They helped me track expenses, save for goals, and celebrate our progress. These small actions planted the seeds for a healthier relationship with money, something I had struggled with for years.
Finding peace with the past.
One of the hardest parts of breaking the cycle was making peace with my past. For years, I had carried anger and resentment toward my parents for the pain they had caused. But holding on to that anger only kept me tied to the very cycles I was trying to escape. Through therapy and reflection, I began to see my parents not just as the sources of my pain, but as flawed individuals shaped by their own struggles. This didn't excuse their behavior, but it allowed me to release the bitterness I had carried. Forgiving them wasn't about condoning their actions. It was about freeing myself from their hold on my life.
A new chapter.
By breaking the cycle, I was not only creating a better life for myself and my children, but also redefining what success meant to me. It was not about achieving perfection or erasing the scars of the past. It was about choosing growth over stagnation, resilience over resignation, and hope over fear. This process taught me that breaking the cycle isn't a one-time decision. It's a continuous commitment to self-awareness, growth, and change. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard, and believing in the possibility of something better. At the end of this chapter, I felt lighter, not because the work was done, but because I knew I was on the right path. I had stopped running from my past and started building a future that reflected the person I wanted to be. In doing so, I took one more step toward creating the life I had always dreamed of.
Conclusion. The freedom to dream.
Standing on the other side of this journey, I see my life not as a finished product, but as a testament to the power of persistence and transformation. The road to earning passive income turned out to be about far more than financial freedom. It was a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and redefining what success means.
The hardest part.
The hardest part wasn't the long hours, the technical learning curve, or even the financial challenges. It was facing myself, my fears, my addictions, and the toxic patterns I had inherited and perpetuated. It was about breaking down the walls I had built to protect myself and daring to believe I could do more. Every step forward demanded courage and vulnerability, and every setback tested my resolve. But through it all, I learned that the greatest obstacle wasn't the external challenges. It was the internal battle to trust myself and stay the course.
What I've built.
The passive income streams I've developed through my blog, digital products, and investments are far from extravagant, but represent something far more significant than money. They are a foundation for stability, a promise to my children that we can rise above our circumstances, and a tangible reminder of what's possible when you dare to dream. But the real success lies in the life I've built around those streams. I've created a home filled with love and laughter where my kids know they are valued and supported. I've cultivated a purpose beyond financial gain, rooted in helping others navigate their challenges. And I've found peace, not in a perfect life, but in the knowledge that I am constantly growing and evolving.
Lessons learned.
This journey has taught me lessons I will carry with me forever. Change is possible. No matter how stuck you feel, there is always a way forward if you are willing to take the first step. Progress isn't linear. Growth comes with setbacks. Every stumble is an opportunity to learn and adapt. You are enough. Your worth isn't tied to your income, your accomplishments, or anyone else's approval. You are enough simply because you exist. Small steps lead to big change. Even the smallest actions, writing a blog post, saving $10, or saying no to old habits, can compound into something extraordinary over time.
The freedom to dream.
Earning passive income has given me the freedom to dream again. It's given me space to think beyond survival and imagine a future filled with possibilities. More importantly, it's shown me that I can create that future with my own hands. This journey has been a living example of resilience and hope for my children. They've seen me struggle and rise, turn pain into purpose, and see that no matter how difficult the journey, it's always worth taking if it leads to something better.
A new beginning.
As I close this chapter, I know the story isn't over. There will be new challenges to face, new goals to pursue, and new lessons to learn. But for the first time, I feel ready to embrace the uncertainty, to celebrate the wins, and to keep moving forward one step, one dream, one day at a time. To anyone reading this, know that the hardest part is just the beginning. The climb may be steep, but the view from the top is worth it. And no matter where you are on your journey, you have the strength to keep going. You have the power to dream again, and you have the potential to create a life that is truly your own.